Hello and welcome to the Rangers Review Morning Briefing. I'm Jonny McFarlane. Today I've been very kindly joined by Mr. Stevie Clifford of Four Lads Had a Dream on Twitter and blogosphere fame. He's coming in to help me out today. Joshua and Derek are away on their holidays for a day, so Stevie has kindly stepped into the breach. Good morning, Stevie.
Morning, mate. How's things?
Aye, good. Let's just have a quick word for our sponsors before we dig right into the main action. Our sponsors are, of course, OneFootball, the OneFootball app, guys. It's your one-stop shop to get everything you need for your specific football club. Now, we know for most of you that is going to be indeed Rangers. So you get instant updates in terms of the scores. You get a live ticker that tells you what's happening in the games. You get detail on the lineup, stats as well from the game, as well as news from various sites. But listen, it's not just Scottish football, it's not just Rangers, it's all over the world. So if you're an AC Milan fan, if you've got a wee penchant for Chelsea, if you like Red Bull Salzburg or whatever, it can all be tracked on this app. So it's a really, really cool way of keeping up to speed with the various clubs you want to keep an eye on, their scores, what's happening. It's downloadable for free, and you can see in the link how to do that. So, guys, we're going to go straight into some very, very sad news today. That Andy Goram has done an interview with the Daily Record, filling us in on the full implications of his recent illness. Andy has got esophageal cancer and has been given, very sadly, just 6 months to live. Now, that is a real hammer blow for everyone who knows Andy, and obviously himself and his family. Stevie, I mean, this is something that we've been aware of in terms of his illness, but the extent of it's only come out today. It's extremely sad news, isn't it?
Yeah, it's devastating news for Andy and all his family, and that's who our thoughts are with. It's really difficult to comment on, Johnny. It's really difficult to discuss. Andy Goram is a living legend of Rangers Football Club, always will be, and we wish him truly all the best. It's a difficult topic. I'm sure that this has touched many people watching, and it's devastating. It really is, and I can only hope that we can rally around and do everything we can for him.
Yeah, absolutely. If for guys our age, Stevie, there's just no one that touches Andy Goram. I know a younger generation will have gone through the Alan McGregor years. But for me, I watched some in his pomp, and the guy was absolutely world-class. Week in, week out, for what felt like about 2 or 3 years, was genuinely a Rangers player you could say was at the top of his tree. There was him and Peter Schmeichel were really fighting it out for the best in the world for a long period, and I thought Andy topped Peter Schmeichel in that period. So there's a reason why he's so beloved, and people who maybe only seen him in grainy YouTube videos or DVDs that their dad owns, believe me, he was an unbelievable goalie in his pomp, like nothing you've ever seen. Guy was 5'11" when he was at his best, and somehow he still managed to fill that goal and pull off save after save. And I don't think anyone before or since has ever been quite such a thorn in Celtic's side in terms of the way he played against in those games. So all our best wishes go to Andy and his family, obviously, as they try to come to terms with this terrible news. We're going to move on. There's no easy way to do that, but we're just going to continue on to the next topic, which is UEFA. Stevie, we saw absolutely ridiculous scenes for a second European final in a row. A third one if you factor in the European Championships at Wembley. I'm not really aware of what happened in the Roma-Feyenoord game, if that all went to plan or not, but certainly these two big finals, the Europa League and, of course, the Champions League, have been in utter shambles. If anything, I thought that Seville could not be matched for incompetence. If anything, this was even worse. You've got the sight of young children being tear-gassed by cops. You've got massive crushes happening outside the ground. I mean, it was actually terrifying sitting watching that at about 10 to 8, Stevie, wasn't it? Because you just thought that this could go south really, really quickly based on what we're getting the information from here.
The really worrying thing for me is that it seems to be getting worse. The bigger the occasion, you would think that it was properly organised. You would think they would be properly, policed and properly stewarded in numbers and things like that. It just seems some of the pictures, potential crushing. There's people just coming in the turnstiles and just being tear gassed to their face for no reason at all, which I find extraordinary. It's dangerous. I don't know too much about it in terms of, like, I've seen videos and things, probably most like everybody else, but I fail to understand how such a big world-class stadium venue can be so poorly organised and so poorly in terms of readiness. We've seen it in Seville, which was just mind-boggling to say the least. And from Seville's point of view, it's not just one side. You've seen Frankfurt have come out and spoke about it, the difficulties that their fans faced and lack of water for everyone and things like that. To go from that level of incompetence to what we've seen on Saturday night to the real showpiece, the Champions League final, is extraordinary. My big worry is, Johnny, that something serious is going to happen again, because when you see those pictures crushing and people, getting kettled in up against fences and all that, it's really worrying. It's really dangerous. And UEFA need to take some responsibility that as soon as these things happen, very quick to say, oh, it's fake tickets, it's fake this, it's fake that. There needs to be a level of competence there, and it's just there's a real lack of trust. I think in the governing bodies in terms of organisation and in terms of being able to put on a big venue like this. And as we go forward in life, it shouldn't be that way. It should become easier. They should be learning from experience, and it is really worrying. Thankfully, we've not seen that. Casualties have been minimal, if that's a good way to describe it. I don't think it is a good way. I don't think there is a good way to say anything about that. But in terms of such a difficult position, I'm glad that it wasn't worse. And UEFA really need to look at their legislation. They really need to look at their organisation of these events and stand back and say to ourselves, are we doing this to the best of our ability? Because I really don't think they are.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is UEFA are completely unaccountable, Stevie. They don't even have a complaints mechanism for fans, which is absolutely shocking. Now, I understand Rangers are certainly not letting this go. They have to be reasonably diplomatic behind the scenes. You can't just go in all guns blazing on UEFA. It's counterproductive. It just gets you in a situation where they will look to seek to take revenge on you, quite frankly. That's the way they work. It'll be, Rangers officials looking to get onto committees will be getting blackballed. It's just, that's how it works. They have to be sensible. They have to go through the processes methodically and try and put pressure on in the right way. I understand it's going to be a statement between Frankfurt Rangers and Football Supporters Europe that's going out today at around 11 a.m. and we'll get to hear what the club have to say. But my understanding behind the scenes, the club are obviously absolutely furious about what went on in Seville. And in many ways, this Liverpool situation will cast even more light on what went down in the Spanish city. Now, a lot of English journalists who have been very vociferous and very vocal about what happened, I think primarily, Stevie, is because they were caught up in it, where in Seville, the journalists, and you were part of this, you're not necessarily aware what's going on apart from receiving text, but you try to cover the game. Whereas I think a lot of journalists in England were actually caught up on their way into the ground and saw firsthand what happened. So it's really been covered exceptionally widely down there. And in essence, it's taken over from the game. And the primary concern down there in terms of the reporting is actually what occurred and how bad it could have been. And I think that's going to be interesting in terms of how much pressure it ramps up, because it's not just the Scottish club. Now what you're seeing is the big guns from the Premier League turning their ire onto UEFA. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of this, because there absolutely has to be some kind of reaction to these two finals. It's clear that policing is a major problem in some European countries, heavy-handed in the extreme in Spain, although I think because the Rangers fans were so well behaved, there wasn't too many problems, but extremely heavy-handed again, it looks like in France. And this kind of treatment of football fans like second-degree citizens, Stevie, it's just not on, is it? We need to get past this. This doesn't happen at the tennis. It doesn't happen at the golf. It certainly doesn't happen at the rugby. And it's a societal problem that goes across Europe, the way football fans are treated.
Yeah, it is. I was in Leipzig, so I was able to experience a couple of away trips this year. The difference between Leipzig and the final in Seville was massive. Leipzig was very well organised. You were mingling in between the supporters. Policing was visible, but not enforced, not on top of you. Very well organised at the stadium. You knew where you were going. There was plenty of people to help you as soon as you looked at your ticket or looked, at your phone to see where they're going. They're right over. Where are you going? How can I help you, etc. In Seville, it was completely different. There was a visible difference to the atmosphere in terms of policing. When myself and Joshua went in quite early, we were starting to see the sort of heavy-handed police presence in that term. But it's a difficult one, Johnny. It really is. I mean, UEFA in terms of Paris and what we've seen, some of the scenes, Johnny, are just the one that really troubles me is the young fella just going into the actual gates and he's getting tear gas for no reason at all.
Yeah.
He's looking at his paper ticket and things like that. There has to be an accountability there, because you're right, in terms of football fans getting treated differently, we all just want to see our team. And understand some guys maybe take it a wee bit too far or whatever. That happens, but that happens everywhere. It seems to be for football that we're never allowed as a support, as football fans, we're never allowed to just enjoy our day. But whereas in Germany and Leipzig, I felt like we could do that.
Yeah.
But when it came to actual Seville and the big showcase where it should be, you would think that it should be a showpiece, enjoyable. It didn't quite have that atmosphere, certainly. So I can only imagine how worried and how scared people must have been on Saturday, because it's not nice when you're in that situation where it's a heavy-handed presence and things like that. But with regards to Rangers and how Rangers have responded, it'd be interesting to see what their statement says. I spoke to the club as well. I wanted to know what the club's thoughts were and how they were handling it in terms of, I know that Seville came out and said that there was accusations that Rangers fans had overreacted to the situations in concourse and things, Johnny, and they made some accusations there which I don't think are worth repeating, but I wanted to know Rangers' stance on it. And Rangers quite rightly said that we're not going to publicly go after this because I don't think there's any benefit to it, but we will pursue this behind closed doors and we will speak to UEFA about it, which I thought was good from Rangers' point of view. In terms of, we've been really critical of comms and in terms of statements and being too attacking, trying to do things behind the scenes and deal with UEFA properly. As you pointed out, I don't think we're ever going to win this fight. So no. I don't think you can. I think you're right in terms of that against UEFA. But in terms of what we do, need to be diplomatic in how we respond and what we're trying to do. So it's good that the club are pursuing it. I hope they continue to try and take it as far as they can. I hope that the journalists, as you pointed out, that have seen this firsthand, hopefully they can make enough noise that it comes some attention onto everything in terms of what's happened in the major showpieces across UEFA's across UEFA's watch the last couple of weeks. So definitely needs to be a full review, needs to be lessons learned. And more importantly, people need to step back, I think, and say, right, these pictures, these scenes, they aren't good. Lack of water, the potential damage to fans' well-being and things like that. It's not just the physical side of it, Johnny. It can be terrifying for a lot of people. Those scenes on Saturday, what happened in Seville, etc. So UEFA have got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they certainly do, Stevie. That's a good way to end that and move on to the continuing speculation that's surrounding Calvin Bassey. Stevie, I feel like I'm reading or seeing like 50 stories a day. The latest on Calvin Bassey, the transfer change as Steven Gerrard assesses Calvin Bassey link. All these stories just building up and building up and building up. And of course, the truth is, Calvin Bassey's on holiday, mate. Calvin Bassey's he's not doing anything. So absolutely nothing's happening. Derek did a real deep dive in terms of this on Friday, and the position that we're hearing was there's been no bids, nothing official. There's been nothing to say at the moment. And to be honest, unless a huge deal comes in and a huge offer comes in, £25 million ballpark starting point, he'll not be going anywhere. Rangers are relaxed, and they're entitled to be, because he's got 2 years left in his contract. Do you see it the same way? Do you think that's right, or are you slightly concerned? How do you see it?
Well, I think Rangers have got every right to be relaxed, like you said, but if I was Rangers right now, I'd be trying to proactively offer Calvin Bassey a bigger deal. I'd be trying to tie him down, maybe put a year or two on that deal, and say to him, it's the same as everything, Johnny. We can be as relaxed as we like with any player until the money comes in and money talks. You and I both know that. We both know the situation Rangers are in. And the truth of the matter is, if somebody comes in with 20, 25 million plus, Calvin Bassey won't be a Rangers player anymore. And that's as simple as it is. We hope that doesn't happen. We hope that he will sign a new contract and grow and continue to progress, because I think that his form the last 3 months was incredible. When you look at the semi-finals, particularly Scottish Cup, particularly even Braga before Leipzig at home and stuff, and then the actual finals of it itself, Calvin Bassey continued just to go up levels. And he's been coached extremely well by Giovanni. When you think back to his first outing at centre-half with Goldson in Prague, it was a bit worrying. It was he was positionally, in the air and things. He was really raw. He was really rash in terms of his overall performance. And even if you look at him at centre-half in February, in terms of that defeat at Parkhead, again, he was caught out a few times and things. But his own progression, his own coaching from the management team has been incredible. So Calvin Bassey's got a lot more growing to do. He's done it on the big stage, and he's got real, I'm excited about him, real potential. There's not too many players that are ever getting past him. There's not too many players that have got his athleticism and things like that. So as a club, I would hope that we've at least sounded him out. I would hope that we were sitting down thinking about what's going to happen next with Calvin Bassey, extend his deal a couple of years, and then say to him, when the time's right and the big money does come in your progression, then go for it. But if we don't do that, Johnny, if we are relaxed in terms of a status quo and we're prepared to see what happens, then I think we're all aware that in the next month or so, if the big money comes in from Calvin Bassey, then like Ryan Kent, like Alfredo Morelos, like anyone at Rangers Football Club, they won't be here anymore. And that's the nature of the beast for us. We then have to go and find the next Calvin Bassey. We then have to go and plan and progress from there. But if you're talking about a guy that came in for £300,000 on the back of being spotted in an under-21 bounce game or a B bounce game at Ibrox against Leicester City, and turning him and putting him out for that kind of money is absolutely fantastic. But if we're wanting to do things, if we're wanting to try and get league titles back and try and progress again in Europe and things like that, Calvin Bassey's got to be central to all our hopes and plans. So it's an interesting one. 25 million from anyone for any of our players, Johnny's a lot to turn down.
Yeah, I was actually at that game, Stevie, the game that Calvin Bassey played at Ibrox. I was there for my previous employer, and I have to say he stood out so much in that game. It's like it wasn't a scouting bit of genius, I mean, it was like watching a man against boys. They were all bouncing off him. I actually said to Graham Murray, who was in charge of the team after the game, I was like, is this the physical standard that your players have to reach? Because he was just so imposing on the left side of a back three that day, and very comfortable on the ball. So when Rangers signed him, I knew they were signing a good player, and it certainly turned out that way. I mean, the one thing about Bassey, Stevie, that slightly worries me, worry to go, is that he's such a key part of the Giovanni Van Bronckhorst tactical plan in terms of going man for man, this kind of really aggressive defensive stance that the team take. Joshua talks about it all the time. It's basically 1v1 defending. You need players with pace. You need players with physicality. And he's perfect for it. It's one of the reasons that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has done so well in Europe, because you've got this guy there that is unbelievably quick to recover, as we saw in the final, unbelievably powerful, and you can't muscle your way past them. And there was a stat last week that came out that he'd only been dribbled past 5 times in the entire season. Now, we can all remember games when players have been dribbled past 5 times. I won't mention any names, but we've over the years we've seen some horror shows in individual games. For a season, that really does show you what Calvin Bassey brings to the table. My concern, Stevie, is that even if you get 25 million, let's say you get 30 million, Rangers are not going to spend 10 million on a single player, I don't think. So then it's like, if you're shopping in the 5, 6, 7, 8 million pound bracket, can you even go and get somebody that has those attributes? And maybe you can, Stevie, but it's hard, isn't it? It's not easy.
I don't think you can, and I don't think, likewise, if you were to get, Alfredo with a year left in his contract, if somebody come in with, 10, 12 million pound or whatever, which would make us seriously think, considering his contract position, then I don't think you could replace him either, Johnny. So we live in a world where, for us, we've got to be careful, and, we've got to be thinking about financial in terms. It'd be great just to kind of have these guys, and if the contract runs out, they go away. And I know that's happened, or should be happening in the next couple of weeks with Connor Goldson, the way things stand. But when you think about guys like Calvin Bassey, when you think about guys like Alfredo, these guys are worth financially a lot more. I agree with you. I think that the thing with Calvin Bassey is such, he's been such a rise in, even at New Year time, even February time, you weren't thinking of Calvin Bassey the way you're thinking about him now. So his own progress, again, go back to the coaching a wee bit. Giovanni says it in the first game he's seen him in Hibs in that semi-final. He talks about famously seeing that he was able to go up and press one-on-one and nick the ball and things like that. In terms of that from Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, to notice that and then take him on the way he has been incredible. Calvin Bassey's went from being first choice left back to first choice centre back, which is a testament to how well he's progressed and how well he's come on. Finding him the right partner could be key. Could it be John Souttar? If you can keep him fit and playing well, I think he's very like for like in terms of Connor Goldson and
I agree.
what he brings, attribute wise, stat wise. We're into Joshua territory here, Johnny, so I won't pretend that I know as much as certainly Joshua does, but I know that that John Souttar's stats are really high. Could they be a good pairing together? I think likelihood they could. It's all a fitness thing for John Souttar. So in terms of a situation where we need to add quite a lot to the squad, and certainly up front, maybe midfield, if we were to lose Calvin Bassey, we would be setting it back quite a bit. But again, realistically, anyone comes in with huge money like that, it's going to happen. Football-wise, I think it's incredible for Rangers as well, that if they were to get that kind of turnaround. But we need to be looking at tying him down. We need to be looking at giving him an extra year or two on that deal, make it worthwhile for him. I noticed he commented on Instagram last week saying money can't buy you everything, money can't buy you happiness, something like that. So I don't think that Calvin Bassey would be in a position where he's rattling down Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's door saying, I want out of here, I want to go. I think he might be quite amenable. I think he might be quite susceptible to a new deal. So let's see what we can do. Let's not get another position, Johnny, where next summer we're looking at him only having a year left and his value is potentially halved. I think that's dangerous. So we should be looking at that situation right now, trying to stop any potential of that happening. But let's get him tied down. Let's talk about building the team round him, building the team round James Tavernier at the back. There's your two fixtures in that defence. Maybe look at a new left back, maybe a partner, depending on where Souttar is. We've got a goalie potentially to bed in as well. So you don't want it to be a situation where you're changing, 4 out your 5 back potential defence and goalkeeper kind of thing, Johnny. So I think I would be in a position where I don't think that Calvin Bassey's value is going to decrease from where he is, unless there's a massive fall in form or that. But given his somewhat rise in the last 3-4 months, I don't see it with him. I think now he's found a level. He's just going to keep going and going up, hopefully. So let's get him tied down. Let's try and build things around him. And if the big money comes, but put the club in the best position possible contractually and things like that, so that if it does come, we're in the driving seat.
Yeah, absolutely. Stevie, finally, before we go, just in terms of the rebuild, you've kind of outlined it very eloquently there. There's going to be a big rebuild. There's no doubt about it. You can't get away from the fact that so many big Rangers players are in the final year of their contract. and the club have huge decisions to make, because there will be offers. Let's be honest. Teams in Germany, for example, I cannot believe they will not be looking at Ryan Kent after 3 good performances against 3 of the biggest teams in Germany. Alfredo Morelos has been terrific when he was fit under Giovanni van Bronckhorst. He was flying, and again, very, very good against Dortmund. You can't believe that clubs across the continent aren't noticing that. So that's just 2. I mean, Joe Aribo scoring in the final. There is going to be turnover of players. You've talked about it in defence. You've talked about it. I've talked about it midfield and forward areas. How important is it for you? And this is the final question. I'll let you go after this. But how important is it that Rangers are acting quickly so that Giovanni van Bronckhorst has got the time to get these guys bedded in, and it's not going to be one of these periods where you're going into these early qualifiers, Champions League, not fully prepared. We know how important these are for the club. It needs to be done in the next wee while, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I would hope that the club have been looking for the last 5 months since the turn of the year at what they're potentially going to be doing in the summer. The whole point in the director of football role is that he works closely with the manager to help identify players. It should always be manager-led in terms of Giovanni van Bronckhorst should have his list that he gives to Ross Wilson, and they work from that, etc. But it does have to be quick, Johnny. But more importantly, and this is where it's vital for me, Rangers don't need to go out this summer and buy 6 squad players. We don't need that. We need first-team quality. We're at a good level. I know that we haven't won the league last season, but European performances, Scottish Cup victory and stuff is a platform to build on. We've got a good base up there of a squad. If you think about what I've said in terms of defence, Calvin Bassey, James Tavernier, etc., we've got little pockets around that team where you can say maybe we've got 6, maybe 7 first-team starters. We need to add 4 quality players to that to make a really good 11. We then need to look a wee bit slightly beyond that in terms of we need players that are capable of getting numbers. Now, we spoke, let's use Fashion Sakala as an example in terms of players that can get numbers. There's a lot of debate about whether or not he's good enough in terms of his actual quality and his actual performance. That's up for debate, maybe another time. I get that, and I know we've all got our own opinions on it, but what he brings is numbers. And you look at other teams that have been successful, there's always guys in that 16 to 18 who pitch in with 12 to 15 goals. We don't have that. Beyond Fashion Sakala, Scott Wright's maybe come in a wee bit, Johnny, in terms of, you remember that article I did like a way back in February after the Old Firm defeat? I said that Gio needs to expand his net beyond what was quite a close-knit squad. He did slightly. We've seen more from Stephen Davis. We've seen more from Scott Wright. We've seen a wee bit more from Fashion Sakala. What I think Giovanni van Bronckhorst needs beyond them players and beyond the squad is squad players that can come in. So it's a 2-tier system for us, Johnny, in terms of what we need. We need quality first team. I think we need 4 quality first team players. Whether you would agree positionally wise, I think we need a left back. I think we need a centre midfielder urgently. But a centre midfielder that's different from what we have, Johnny, in terms of we've got a lot of players that are very samey, a lot of players that are very safe, a lot of players that can play defensively very well. We need somebody that's going to attack. We need somebody that's going to be able to take a shot, score goals, a midfield presence. We need a proper right winger in terms of somebody that can float around, somebody that can add what Kent does on the right-hand side. Now, I know that's difficult. I know it's going to cost money, but that's the responsibility of Ross Wilson and Giovanni van Bronckhorst to find that. And we need a number 10. Difficult position to fill. We need somebody that's going to sit behind that front man. You're going to need somebody that's going to dig in and things like that. So it's top-heavy for me in terms of the 4 that we need. Beyond that, again, instead of it being squad players, we then need first-team squad players. And that's different to, without being disrespectful, having somebody that can come in and fill the squad. We need guys that can produce numbers. We need guys that can come in and be your 16 to 18, but easily start in that first team and push the first team players as well. We've got a nice, I think, 12, 13, 14 players. Beyond that, you've got maybe 1 or 2 that you could argue that can push in. A lot of players are very samey after that. So it's going to be interesting. I think there's room to rebuild, Johnny, in terms of rebuild the squad and add to the first team. And I think there's also room to be flexible in terms of who we want to let go and who we want to build around. There's a few players in that first team that we can afford to possibly think about if the money comes in for them. And that's where we've got to be kind of savvy, I suppose. It'll be down to Gio. Gio's now had time. He's now had a solid 6 months. You think about him arriving at the end of November, he should know exactly where they are. I think it is going to be a big turnover. Interesting to see that they might be close. Again, might be. I don't know where they are in terms of contracts for Davis, etc. So that might give us a bearing in what he might not be doing in terms of squad-wise. If Davis stays, you've got to maybe think, is that because he thinks money's coming in elsewhere for somebody else, etc.? So if you keep Stephen Davis in the squad the way it is at the moment and nobody else was to leave, that would trouble me slightly in terms of maybe stifling a few that's coming through. Maybe are we too... I think we're too similar in certain positions, Johnny, without keep going and without, I could be here 15 minutes talking about this squad.
Yes.
So, don't want to do that. Don't want to keep people. But it's a fascinating position, Johnny, because there's business to be done. I think we're easily looking at 6 to 8 coming in, easily.
Yeah.
But 4 of them have got to be key. They've got to be right for me. They've got to be first-team players, £3 to £4 million players. 10 to 12 million is where I'd like to think Gio has in terms of spend after Europe, after player sales, etc. That might be a wee bit too high. Maybe that is too high. Maybe some money will have to come in for that to be the case. There's big stuff to do in terms of Kent, Morelos, Aribo, like you pointed out. It's a big summer for us, but we can't afford to have 15 out, 15 in, and start all over again. We need to add to what we've got. We need to be... there needs to be a rebuild as such, but it can't be a complete start over again. So it's interesting. Big summer. I'd like, to go back to your very original point, I'd like to think that we were some way down the road and figuring out where we are in terms of who's coming and what's happening. I would think that, by the time the players return, and we're looking at players returning at the end of June, Gio said they had 5 weeks off. You take that from last week, they've probably got another 4 left. So we'd be looking at within the next 2-3 weeks to start to get a baseline of where our squad's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. No, a lot of people in the quotes talking about Alex Lowry as a potential number 10. Stevie, I know that he's a player that you rate highly, so he's someone that can definitely come in and make an impact next season as well, I think. But we'd love to get into that a little bit more, but we're now running out of time, guys. Thank you very much for everyone who's come on. It's been great. Thanks for all your comments. Stevie, thank you for joining me in the absence of those other two. You've done brilliantly, and it's been great to chat with you. We are obviously available at the website, www.rangersreview.co.uk. We have a deal on at the moment, which you can see along the ticker below. Is £6 for the next 6 months, which is a cracking offer. You pay that up front. It's a one-off payment, and then you pay nothing for the next 6 months. That supports us to do these videos. We'll be doing a lot more videos over the coming weeks, I can assure you, and we'll have tons of content on the website. Thanks very much once again for joining us, and until next time, thanks.